Hello everyone, my name's Karina Thompson, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can use the mySewnet embroidery software to build your own personalised designs using the inbuilt super designs, and also how you can use the software to see what your design might look like when it's stitched out on a garment. So I'm in the software. The opening window always is hoop selection. For the purposes today, I'm going to choose a universal hoop group, and I have chosen my hoop to be 240 by 150 mils. So I'm going to click OK, and we're good to start designing. So the super designs are on the super design tab, and I'm just going to scroll through and just show you the wide variety of super designs that are actually in the software. So we've got everything from animals, we've got appliques, we've got fancy buttonholes, we've got cartoons, all sorts of stuff that you could use for just virtually any project that you can think of. Fancy corners, we've got some designs down here to do with food and housewares, just lovely range of stuff. Okay, now I am going to go back up here to the cute animals, and I am going to choose this little fella up here on Cute Animals 3, and number 3 is Squirrel. And you've got some choices. If I wanted to, I could actually just use this as a line embroidery if I want, but in actual fact we're going to go for colour today. I'm going to leave the default as it is, the default size, and I am going to click apply. So we've got our super design of our squirrel in the centre of the hoop. Now we know that this is a super design because the nodes are green, and that means we can resize it without any loss of quality. Now for instance, if this was a traditional, if this was a standard embroidery, if you look at this stitch count over here, it's telling me that the stitch count is a little bit under 3,000 stitches. And look what's going on with his tail. Look at the quality of the pattern fill. Now on a normal design, if I was to then enlarge that and stretch the size up, what actually would happen is the areas of the pattern fill would open up, and the satin stitches in here would open up, and it would all be just this mess. You just wouldn't have a really good stitch quality. But actually what's happening, if you look up here on my thread count, we're at 20,000. So the stitches, the program knows that this is a super design, and it's redigitized it for the size that it is, so that we've had no loss in stitch quality. Now similarly, if I actually moved it right down, that stitch quality has stayed the same. Now very often with a traditional embroidery, if you size down, you have real problems at stitch out because your stitches are so close together that the needle messes up. But again, you can see the program has recalculated the stitch number, so we've got great stitch quality at a much smaller size. Okay, I'm just going to delete my squirrel friend and put him back in again, because I'm just going to up the size just a tiny little bit. Let me just see. Yep, okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, now what I'm actually going to be doing is I'm going to be working on a design for a gift that I'm making for a friend. I'm going to customize some pajamas for her, just do a little bit of embroidery on the pajama top, just so it's a nice personalized gift. So I've got my super design in here. The next thing I want to do is add some lettering. So up here on the letter tab, now there are nearly 500 different fonts in the software, and you can see that we've got everything ranging from kind of traditional fonts. We've got some crazy monogram fonts. We've got a fantastic Christmas one, but today I am going to use this font here in retro here called Miami. Okay, so I've selected that, and in the lettering box I am going to type I need, and then I'm going to press return a hug. Okay, now normally the default is actually just for a horizontal block. I'll show you what that might look like if I click apply, and you might go, that is great, Karina, perfect, good to go. Let's export it, let's stitch it out. But I want to show you another thing that you can do in the software just to make this a really special gift. So up here I'm going to choose full circle, and when I then click apply on that, that actually puts my lettering into a circle where I've got my lettering above and below, and in actual fact you can tweak the size of that. I'm just going to pull that down a bit more and just move that up so it's looking great on there. And if you ever want to check what your embroidery design might look like, I use Life View all the time. So I'm going to click on that, and basically this will give me some kind of feel for what that might look like with these pattern fills in here. I don't know if you can see the light changing. I'm going to be using a rayon embroidery thread that's got some sheen on it, and to me that's looking great. I'm happy with that. And so I am going to just close that down. But there's another feature that is great in the software. It's really useful to use, and that is, I might think, well, okay, what's this actually going to look like on the t-shirt? So if I go to the View tab on here, and there is a background wizard, so I'm going to click on the background wizard, and there are a number of choices. So for instance, you can see the garment, but it might be, for instance, if you were doing an embroidery specific for a quilt block, or perhaps to go on a fancy piece of fabric, you can load those up. But we're going to go with garment, so I'm going to check that, and then I'm going to click next. The next screen says, okay, load the background, so I'm going to do that. And there's all sorts of you can see from the list here, these are actually already loaded up. There's all sorts of bags and hats, children's wear, there's things like aprons, but we're going to go to ladies here. And again, you can see under that we've got hoodies, rugby shirts, polo shirts, sweatshirts, but I am going to go for the V-neck t-shirt. And again, I know that my friends are medium, so I am going to go and check that, and you can see a whole range of lots of different colours come up, but I am going with the medium black t-shirt, and I'm going to double click it, and there it is, and I am going to click finish. Now if I just zoom out a little bit down here, you can see I've got my design in here, and at the moment it's in the middle of the t-shirt. Well, I don't want to stitch that out there, so I'm going to go up to here to the move and rotate. In actual fact, I might have zoomed out a little bit too much. Let me just come back one more. Yep, perfect. Okay, and then so I've checked the move and rotate, and then that's exactly what I am going to do. I'm going to bring this up onto here, and then so you can move that so wherever you actually want to stitch that out, but I'm going on this side, but also I can see that I need to rotate it, and if you look, I've got this little pink lever down here, and if I move that I can just twist that just a little bit, maybe move it a little bit more. Now I'm still not 100% sure if that placement's right, and if I go back to the Life View button, I can zoom out, have a look, how's that looking? Do I want to rotate it? Have a little look. But the one thing that I really like is this show reel button, and if I press that, what happens is basically it's almost like a little animation comes in showing me what the embroidery is going to look like. You can see that we're zooming in, it's showing me that detail of the satin stitches, the nature of how the sheen's going to look on the pattern fill. And also here I've got a button that allows me to share the video if I want to. So for instance, I might want to send the video to my friend and say, hey, is this what you were thinking? And then she can say yes or no. So that's a really useful feature for sharing your ideas, your design work, before you actually stitch it out. So I'm just going to close this window down. Okay, and it might be my friend comes back to me and says, well, do you know what, I don't want pink, and that's absolutely fine. I can just go back to the design panel, I can do a double click on here, and the colour selection box opens, and for instance it might be that I choose another colour. At the moment we've got Robson Anton, but if I click on show all thread ranges, basically we've got all the thread ranges from all the main manufacturers here. Okay, and it might be that my friend says, well, actually I would like you to work with Madeira Rayon, the 40, and this is the shade card. So these are exactly the colours with the reference number, and that allows you, if necessary, that it might be that my friend actually says, oh, I need you to use this colour, this is the colour that I've been into a store and selected, so I can click OK on that, and that's automatically changed that. And again, if I wanted to, I can click on my live view and I can do the show reel, and if necessary I can send it for approval. But let's say she's a bit more laid back. Yeah, that's fine, not a problem. I can then use the send to mySewnet to either send the design up to the mySewnet cloud account where I can save it, and it will be there for when I'm ready to use it. If I've got a Wi-Fi enabled machine, I can send it to my machine, or of course you can do the traditional way of clicking on File and then exporting, and then there are all the main file formats for any of the embroidery machines. So I hope you found this a useful film, and please look out for more films in the series just showing the many facets of the mySewnet embroidery software system.